Hey, well, good morning. Didn't have my mic on and wasn't ready. It's what happens when you take a week off, right? You get rusty. But it is so good to have you guys here. Again, if it's your first time being with us, we appreciate it. I promise you won't have to listen to me long, but we're going to get our kids in here a little bit. I know some of you came to see your kids, and we are so thrilled to have your kids at day camp with us this week. We had a great time, I think, and all I know is I saw a lot of pictures of kids sleeping in the car on the way home, so I think that's a good indication that it was time well spent at day camp. But I'm just super excited to be back. I was actually gone last week. I got to go out to Montana. And I did catch fish. I did some fly fishing, and it was just good to be away and clear your head. And there's no better place to do that than Montana. I highly recommend it. I think you all should go. I think we're going to take us all next week, but maybe not. But it was a good time. But it's so good to be back. I'm actually super excited about this new series. We're starting a new series called Deep Clean, and I'm really excited about it. Not so much that it's because it's a series that, or anything that I've written or anything like that, but it's just really every now and then God does things and he works through people's lives and the Holy Spirit does things and then it is crystal clear to me when things line up. And so I'm confident that maybe someone here this morning needs to hear this message and needs to hear what God has for you and what God is listening to. And the fortunate thing for you is that in a moment I'm going to have somebody come up and share. And so you're going to get to hear from somebody other than myself, which is always a treat for everybody here. So, but we are good. Just a quick question for you this morning to get started. If we all of a sudden pulled a Jesus and Zacchaeus on you and said, hey, we're going to go to your house today. Like if we came up to you and said, hey, guess what? All the church is coming over immediately after the service. Like immediately following the service, we are all coming over to your house. And by the way, we're going to go through your cabinets and your closets and everything like that and look under your bed. Who's ready for that? Okay, y'all can leave. Yeah. Like, who is really ready? My wife would be terrified. Like, if that was the thing. And it's not that we're like really dirty people. I think we're pretty decently clean people. I'd like to think we are anyway. And we clean up the house and stuff. But not every week. It's not like toothbrush on the toilet bowl clean, But it was, and I don't know whose toothbrush I'm using. But even when I do that, But every now and then, we do that deep clean, right? Like, you clean your house and you pick it up. But the fact of the matter is, we live in our house and it gets dirty, just like some of yours, I would assume, and that there are things probably stuffed in your closet or under the bed or in a drawer. Who has a junk drawer? Everybody has a junk drawer, right? Like, just crammed full of junk. And so every now and then, we have stuff in our life, and I think our life is no different than that. There are things that, and especially coming through the season that we've just come through, it just gets, life gets messy. And I think sometimes life can leave us feeling like it's a mess, and it's the kind of mess that's just really, really too complicated to figure out, and you're just not really ready for it. It's not this deep clean. So that's what we're going to spend some time talking about over the next couple of weeks. And this first week, I'm super excited about it. And have you ever felt like everything in your life is going wrong? Like in a moment, and you're just kind of bitter over it? And I don't know whether that's your relationships or your finances or work or your relationship with Christ or world events or whatever it is, that you just feel like everything that you touch. Like Cheryl and I, the past year and a half, I don't know, it's been going on for about a year and a half. Everything that we own has broken. Almost really, and it's major expense type of stuff. Our furnace went out in our house, the boat motor died, my truck had a problem, her Jeep's got an issue. The pool right now is leaking water immensely. I have no idea where it's going, but it's not staying in the pool, which is a problem. But it's just everything, and I'm like, are you kidding me? What else? And I know that's all first world problems, right? Probably it can always be worse, but you just kind of get bitter. And you're like, are you kidding me? What else can happen in my life? And don't ever say that, by the way, just because there's always something that could be worse. And there's always something that can make you even more bitter. And so this morning, I'm not going to talk one other question for you. Have you ever woken up and just been grumpy, for no reason? Absolutely just angry at no? Yeah? Well, that happens at our house sometimes. I've been there. I've got up and I'm just ticked off and I have no idea why. I don't know why. Those are the days you do not want to be driving in front of me. don't do that because I'm going to pass you in town. But like there was a moment like that I know you don't believe this. I've been just celebrated my 28th wedding anniversary yesterday. So I know you're all wondering how it happened. I don't know. I'm still amazed that I married up, But every now and then, my sweet wife wakes up on the wrong side of bed. And a couple Saturdays ago, it was one of those days. And she woke up, and she, admittedly, she's like, I'm just angry, and I don't know why. And I said, okay, that's cool. I'm going to the garage. See you later. So I just got out of the house. But for whatever reason, we have that stuff that just wells up in us, and whether it's life or the circumstances of our day or whatever it is, and so we have to do this deep clean. And I want to share you a story real quickly about this woman in the Bible. And some of you who have been around church know this story, or you've had a Bible and you know this story. Some of you may not. Some of you may be new to church, or you're coming back to church, or you had a bad experience and you find yourself here, or maybe you're just here to see a kid or what. I don't know. I'm going to tell you the story about this lady named Naomi, and it's in a book called Ruth. It's in the Old Testament. And some of you know exactly that story, right? When I say that, you're like, okay, I know this story, I know where he's going with this. But Naomi was this woman who was married. She had a husband, and she had 2 sons. And so they lived in Bethlehem, and they made this decision because of famine and some hard time that they were having in Bethlehem to move from Bethlehem to a place called Moab. Okay, so Moab is kind of, it's like the armpit of the Midwest, okay? It's like not a good place. The Moabites were pagans. They worshiped a different god. They were vile and evil people, and so Naomi had taken her and her husband decided to pack up their 2 sons and move to Moab because of famine, and out of necessity we do things, right, to provide for our family. And so I want to pick up this story, and here's what happened in Naomi's life. I'm going to read just the first part of Ruth chapter 1 through 5. It says this, and I'm probably going to butcher some of these names in here, so don't feel bad when you read through this and can't read the names. I can't either. But it says like this, it says this in verse 1. In the days when the judges ruled, in fact, during the time that Naomi lived, there were no kings. It was kind of lawlessness. For 350 years, there were just judges that kind of ruled, and it was just kind of chaos. It says, in the days when the judges ruled, there was famine in the land. So a big famine. People were hungry. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. So in other words, his family was from Bethlehem, and they went to Moab to live there. There, we picked that up. I already told you that. Now, Elimelech and Naomi's husband died, and she was left with her 2 sons. So they moved to Moab. All of a sudden, her husband gets COVID and dies. I don't know if that's what. Something happened, he died, okay? They married Moab women named Oprah and the other Ruth. So these 2 sons went from Bethlehem and married Moab women, Ruth and Naomi, okay? Not Naomi. Naomi was mom. They married women named Oprah and Ruth. After they lived there for about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died, and Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. So in other words, big famine, stuff's going wrong in her life. They have to pack up their junk and move to the armpit of the Middle East into Moab, into a land of ruthless, evil, pagan-worshiping people. And not only their son married 2 women from there, and now they died too. So she's left with 2 daughter-in-laws, and her husband and her 2 sons have died. She gets bitter, okay? Not one son, both sons, her husband. They don't know the details. They leave from home. Naomi's life completely has fallen apart, and she loses both of her sons. And now here's what you need to know. Like in that day and age, if you did not have a man in the house, you were toast. Okay, like if there was not a husband or a son involved in your family, you could not provide for yourself. You could not eat. You had 0 status in culture in that period of time. And so without a man around the house, she was toast. She was going to be a slave. She was going to do whatever she had to do. She was going to scrape and beg and get by in order to live. And so, and you read through Ruth, you can read the whole story, but that's pretty much what happened. So what happens is they decide, hey, we got to go back to Bethlehem. And so she says to her daughter-in-laws, hey, listen, y'all stay here. It's not like I'm going to have more kids and you can marry somebody. Y'all go back to your own people. Go back to your own families. Find other guys to marry. My sons are dead. You go. Oprah's like, okay, I'm out of here. Deuces, thanks. I don't want to go, but I'm going to go. Ruth, on the other hand, says, hey, listen, wherever you go, I'm going. I'm staying with you. She was committed. She was dedicated. She stayed with Naomi. Went back to Bethlehem. All of Naomi's friends from Bethlehem recognize her. She's been gone 10 years, living in the armpit of the world at that point in time. And here's what happens. So the women went on until they came to Bethlehem. This is Ruth chapter 1, verse 19. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them, and the women in the town exclaimed, can this be Naomi? So the women in her town recognize that she's come back home and go, that's Naomi. We recognize her. She's been gone for a while, but that's Naomi. Naomi, pay attention to what she says. She says, don't call me Naomi. Because Naomi, her name, what it meant was pleasant and sweet. That's what her name meant. And she's like, listen, don't you dare call me Naomi. My life has been hell on earth. I've lost my husband. I've lost my 2 sons. I have 0 status. I don't know what I'm going to eat. In fact, she says, don't call me Naomi. She told them, call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life bitter. She was bitter. She was angry. She was negative. She had endured all kinds of carnage in her life and in her family. And she had placed that blame squarely and directly on God. That last verse, here's the last verse of 21 I want to read. It says, I went away full. This is Naomi talking. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Call me Mara. Call me bitter. I dreamed of this life and this relationship with my kids and grandkids, and all of that is gone. God didn't hold up his end of the bargain. He has made me bitter. My life is bitter, and I'm angry and negative, and the glass is half empty. It is not half full. Have you ever met anybody really bitter like that? It's where she was. And here's the problem. The wrong direction always leads to the wrong destination. She headed away from Bethlehem into Moab, and she hung out in Moab for too long. Naomi's trajectory was away from God. Naomi left Bethlehem for Moab in the wrong direction, always leads to the wrong destination. And so my question to you this morning, is your life pointed toward things of God, or is it to other things? And the year that we've lived in and the environment and the culture that we're living in now, it has thrown everything for a loop. There has been, the glass has become half empty versus half full. And there has been people, this mass drifting away from God in the last year. One of the challenges, I got to be honest, when I went to Montana, I needed that. Because when I left, it was hard for me as a pastor. And I thought I was alone. I thought, okay, people are drifting away from church, and people are doing different things, and people are watching online, and there's no problem with that. We love you if you're watching online. But there's just been this drift away, it seems like. And I was feeling like, oh, man, is it me? Is it something I've done? I've heard from people. I've texted people that are not here, and I just get ghosted. And it's just been this. And so I got out with some other pastors in Montana and realized that it's all over the country. The wrong direction always leads to wrong destination. And it also, a distorted view of God always leads to a distorted view of life. Naomi had this distorted view of God because of the circumstances of her life and the things that had gone on that had made her bitter. And that will always lead to a distorted view of life. The glass is always going to be half empty when you have a distorted view of God. So, with that said, I'm going to shut up for a minute. I'm going to ask one of my friends. A couple weeks ago, I'm going to go ahead, Amy, you can come on up. A couple weeks ago, I got a text from Amy Williams, and when you're a pastor and you get a text from people, and I get picked, and sometimes it's basically like, I'm going to grab this chair. Come on over, you can grab your chair. You get a text from somebody that says, hey, listen, I need to talk. Can you talk? And so I got a text from Amy Williams like that, and I've gotten several lately post-COVID. And typically when you get a text like that from somebody when you're a pastor, it's like, I think your message was what? Like, I need to talk to you and...
I need to talk to you. I don't really want to do this, but I need to do this.
There you go. That's what I got. So I'm like, oh, no. I'm like, we've known Amy and her family forever, and they've been a key part of this church and have volunteered, and I just felt like, oh, my goodness, I've done something wrong. And honestly, my glass was half empty. I was expecting something bad. And so Amy said, hey, I need to come talk. I don't really want to, but I want to talk to you about something. And so we got to talk, and it was all good. And then I was like, okay, you got to share this, right? And she's like, yeah, I know. I don't really want to. So she's not super excited to be here, but she's being obedient, and I love that. And so Amy, you have been, like Naomi, you've been on this journey, and it hasn't always been pleasant in your life.
Correct. I said I had my mail forwarded to Moab. Okay. I just decided I was just going to live there.
You're living in Moab.
Yes.
Okay.
So there were some things that, a couple of different situations from my childhood all the way through till recently that have affected me. Mm-hmm. And totally just rocked the foundation of what I thought Amy was built on. And I would explain it like you put explosives under my foundation, mm-hmm. and then just let them off. Okay. So my perspective and what reality was totally two different things, and that's affected me for years.
Okay. So stuff going on, stuff that's happened years and years and years ago, and stuff that has continued to be part of your story have negatively affected you, and you've carried that.
Yes, and I didn't even realize the bitterness and the resentment that it caused. But Satan just used that instead of a firm foundation. He replaced that with these negative bricks.
Sure.
This bitterness just ate at me and just got worse and worse. And it seemed like everything in my life, that's where I was focused on, was that bitterness, mm-hmm. not even realizing the bitterness that I carried.
Yeah. So I think when we talked, you shared, Amy, that you were just kind of negative. You just were.
I was negative Nancy. I was. I mean, I had everything going for me. I had a great husband. I had great kids.
Yep.
But my glass was always half empty. That's the
everything
perspective that I had.
Fault. It was just.
Yes.
Okay.
And I never left the church. I mean, I've been in church my whole life, right. And I never left church, but I just struggled with feeling that God was with me. I struggled. I didn't have that close relationship. The feeling of it. And I would pray, hey, help me. I'm struggling here. I don't know what my purpose is. Just help me. I want to feel closer to you. But then as soon as I would pray that, I would go back to carrying that bitterness with me and that resentment and that anger. And I mean, the bitterness just became who I was.
Yeah, because it's not like you guys were out of, you guys have attended here regularly for years. Every Sunday you've been engaged, you've been in youth group and kids and led Christmas programs, and all of it.
I did it all, but I didn't take care of my heart.
Okay.
I just carried that bitterness. I couldn't fix that. I tried with all of my actions, mm-hmm. and what in the Bible it says your actions are like filthy rags. Mm-hmm. The actions weren't fixing
So on the outside, it looks like Amy was this, hey, I'm super engaged Christian, I attend church all the time, I'm doing all the right things.
Right.
But inside, there was this incredible sense of bitterness. And
I was just camped out in Moab.
Okay, camped out in Moab. So talk to me about the moment that this clicked for you. Because when we had this conversation, I've known Amy forever. And she came in and we talked. There was this moment that something clicked, right?
So, yes. So backstory. Last May, COVID 2020. My mammogram was due. Mammograms were shut down. They weren't doing those. So I didn't have my mammogram in May. Through the summer, I didn't do it because I don't have a history of breast cancer in my family. We don't have cancer. Mm-hmm. We have diabetes and heart disease. I always say we like to eat. We don't have cancer. So I didn't have my mammogram. I'm thinking in the fall. I'll do it in the fall. Well, in September, I was heading to work one morning, and a lady fell asleep, crossed the center line, and hit me head on. Totaled out both of our vehicles. I walked out of it. I was okay. Some trauma on the right side where I couldn't have a mammogram for a while. Things had to heal before I could do that. So I had my mammogram scheduled for December. So I have my mammogram in December, and it comes back that there's a spot. So I end up having to have a biopsy. I have surgery. It's cancer. So that just added another bitterness block to my wall. That just compounded everything. My glass was just getting more empty. But something finally stopped, and I was like, okay, this can't be the end, or this can't be the beginning of the end. Like, my life is made for something more than this. Like, this can't be how it goes, God. Like, this isn't it. So I had struggled for a long time to figure out where I fit in and what I was supposed to do. So I just prayed that through this journey, God would show me what it was that I'm supposed to see. And I just kept praying that and praying that. And it's been an amazing journey, because even though I was diagnosed with cancer and I've gone through chemo and I've gone through radiation and I still have things left that I have to do, God has melted my heart. He's gotten rid of that bitterness. Now, it's not been a switch that just flipped and like it's all gone, because I could easily move back to Moab.
Sure.
It's not like just, I mean, it's a constant thing that I have to think about.
Do you feel like it's a choice?
It's a choice. It is a choice, because I don't have a choice with what things happened in the past, but I have a choice on how I deal with that and how I let that affect me and what I do about it in the future.
Cool. I love that. And I love how, when she came to talk to you, she was like, I was just a really negative person. And I can see that change in you already. But so what is your advice for somebody that may be struggling and living in Moab right now, in that dark space, in that, hey, I don't feel God? And I think also that there's been this disenfranchisement with church in general. Like, hey, I just come and be fed, and then I leave, and it's like my job to deliver this message, and it's all your jobs to just sit and listen to it. What piece of advice, and I know where you're going with this, but what do you think has made the difference for you with that?
What God has told me through all of this is it's not about you. Like I said, it's my choice how I react and how I respond. It's not about you. I mean, Jesus here on earth was persecuted the whole time he was here. He could have had the same bitterness that I carried, because he had a lot more stuff happen to him than even I did. But it's about being the hands and feet of Jesus. Yeah. It's being for others. That's just what God has showed me through all of this. So there's this song. I relate to music more than anything. I mean, my whole family relates. We're just a musical family. And this song by Mercy Me, Say I Won't, it says, while I've been waiting to live, my life's been waiting on me. And I want to know what it means to live and not just be alive.
I love that.
So the reason that I even called you was I was driving home one day. And there was not even anything in my mind that I was just driving home. And all of a sudden, God just, it could only have been more vivid if he would have been screaming. But what he said was, Amy, I've been with you. I was with you during your delayed mammogram. I was with you during the car wreck. I was with you during your diagnosis, your surgery, your treatments. I'm going to be with you still, and it's going to be okay. I just want you to tell about it. And I want you to tell that it's not about us. It's us being here for others.
I love that.
We are the hands and feet of Jesus, and whatever that looks like. I mean, for everybody that's different, but we could wallow in Moab forever, or we can choose to move back to Bethlehem and stay there.
And the way that I've seen that you do that, and something that has just been in touch with who we are as a church and what we see around this place all the time, is that connection for being for others and making that choice to leave the bitter. It's still probably still a struggle sometimes.
It's still there. I mean,
sure.
The situations are still there.
Right. But I think that if we can place our focus on being for others, one of the things that Amy told me when we came here, she's like, hey, I don't want this to be about this poor girl that's got cancer, because that's just a side note.
That's just one of the stepping stones to where I'm at today.
Not about that. It's about this change that you have felt in your heart. And I can tell you, Amy was here. She probably won't want me to tell this, but I know she went to treatment this week and showed up back at the church to help care for your kids and to clean up and to take the garbage out and be the hands and feet of Jesus. So thank you. I love it. Thank you. Love you too. I know that's difficult. And here in a minute, we're going to have the kids come in. Here in a minute, I don't know who's supposed to get them, if they're ready to come in now, but I don't know. Somebody go get them. But we are, I think they're going to come in here in a minute. And so Amy just shared that story about this song. And so I just want to share just a little bit about this song that we have that this Say I Won't. It's a Mercy Me song. I had been playing it in my office all week and listening. I'd heard it on the radio, had it in my have it on my phone. I listen to it when I'm doing message prep and that type of thing. And so this song had been speaking to me all week. And Amy comes in and we have this conversation very similar to the one that you guys just witnessed. But it was this conversation, and she's like, hey, there's this song. And she said, hey, it's Say I Won't by Mercy Me. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I've been listening to that same song. It's like right here on my phone. And we didn't know that each other have that in common. And then so day camp hits. We go to day camp. Amy shows up to help at day camp, starts talking to Cheryl about the kids and what's going on. And because Amy has always helped us with the music for day camp and helped get our kids ready to sing for you guys and that type of thing. And so Cheryl's like, yeah, I'm kind of nervous. We're doing this song. And she's like, we're doing this song called Say I Won't. Have you heard of it? It was just like one of those moments, where we knew that God had his hand in this song and in our kids this week. And so I would just challenge you this morning I don't know if anybody here needed to hear that this morning, but I tell you, they're so easy to get in that funk and to live there in Moab when God wants to bless you in Bethlehem. I think some of us have pitched our tent in Moab, and God wants to do that. I want to read the end of this story real quick. Naomi, after gone through everything she had, and if you know the story of Ruth finds this guy named Boaz, marries Boaz. He's a rich guy, good-looking guy. God allows them to have a child. And then in Ruth chapter 4, verse 16 through 17, it says this, then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The women living there said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. And Obed, Naomi's grandson, was the father of Jesse, who was the father of David, who was the father of Solomon, and then Jacob, and then Joseph, who married a girl named Mary and had a son named Jesus. So out of her pain, and out of her glass half empty, and out of her bitterness, God worked through that to bring us Jesus. So I don't know what you're going through. I don't know how your life is falling apart. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you're camped in Moab. But if you will move closer to God, let me tell you, he will work something amazing and refreshing and new and exciting in your life. And you can have a complete change of outlook on your world and what you see happening. And you can dare people to say I won't. Next week, come back and join us. We'd like to invite you back. We're going to continue on this series. You're going to love it next week. Somebody else is going to share next week. You're going to love their story. So I'd invite you to come back. But I'm going to pray real quick, and then we're going to, while these guys get out, so let me pray for you all this morning. Father, we thank you so much for these kids and this day and for Amy's story, Lord. I pray, Lord, that you would just help us to search our own heart. Help us to move from Moab to Bethlehem. Help us to make that conscious choice to allow you to work in our lives and be the hands and feet of Jesus. Take us from this place, but not your presence. Thank you again for being here with us this morning. In your name I pray. Amen. Have a great week. Thanks again for being here.